So today we're going to talk about some avant-garde and some interesting aspects of music here. Is talk first about minimalism. And minimalism is this reaction um, against kind of what was going on at the time, and against what was going on in previous times. So music of the 18th century, music of the classical era, the Romantic era in the 19th century, all led to this culmination in the 20th century to call something of a new technique, similar to how we talked about aleatoric music and chance music and determinate music. All those three words meaning the same thing, that music's up to chance in a way. This is going to be minimalism. So minimal meaning that the composer is going to do something minimalistic. It's just like if you're going to decorate your house or your walls in a minimalistic way, it means you're going to have less on the walls. So it's the sort of idea that less is more in a way. So the composer tries to do as little as possible in the music. So it's little changes that they do that slightly modify. Like the whole song may have the same rhythm the entire time, and the only thing that changes is maybe one note every 10 measures or something. So it can be sort of pedantic and sort of cathartic actually to hear this minimal music. And you probably have heard a lot of minimal music before and probably just didn't know it. He changed minimalism in a way, and so the pattern gradually sort of mutates as it moves along. So it means that it changes slightly as it goes along, and basically layers are added. So the first thing we're going to hear is John Adams' Short Ride in a Fast Machine. So you're going to hear how the entire piece really kind of changes slowly. Notice here, this wood block here, is going to be prevalent the entire time. They're playing this da, 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 1, 2, 3, 4 the entire time. And then everything else is added around. And you heard those clarinets kind of come in and the trumpets da, 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 da. Everything is just the same sort of rhythmic pattern over and over again. And it's just layers upon layers. And I'll put a link to this. Next, I want to talk about Steve Reich's clapping music. Steve Reich is a minimalist composer as well. And his clapping music is really interesting. So basically what you're going to hear is the music of two people clapping. And it sounds kind of silly. But in essence, what it is, it's one rhythm played over and over again. But after it's played a certain amount of times, one of the clapping people or agents or musicians is going to shift over an eighth note, and then so as it goes along, every time it'll shift another eighth note, and I'll show you the picture here to kind of help you understand. So notice how it's shifted. So this one starts here, and this one starts on the second sort of pulse here that you hear. Da, 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 da. So the second eighth note that they're playing here starts their first eighth note. So it just gets shifted over one every single time. So notice how it shifted again. After it repeats 8 times, it shifts again. Notice how they're still both playing the same rhythms, da, 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 da. They're just playing them at different times, and now each note lines up differently. So they're not playing in unison, which means they're not playing at the same exact time, the same rhythm at the same time. And what I love what someone else has done here, they show something really kind of cool. So we move on to George Crumb, who's this really cool kind of avant-garde composer. And he writes this interesting composition called Ancient Voices of Children in 1970. And we call it avant-garde because it doesn't follow any sort of rules here. It doesn't follow any sort of pattern, even though minimalism can be avant-garde in a way, but it still has a form, it still has a rule that it sort of tries to follow. You know, minimalism is trying to show, it's just trying to do as little as possible. It's doing the same thing over and over again for a while. But he has these really strange and bizarre sound and vocal effects. The soprano, for the beginning, leans over into the grand piano and sings into it. All the instruments are electric, so they're electrified instruments, so they're plugged into some sort of amp, even the piano. And then it has a voice soprano that echoes her later on. And she does a lot of these tongue trills, so rolling of your tongue like in Spanish. A lot of the music is in Spanish. And sometimes there's elements in English. So he also shows interesting sort of scores here. So you can kind of see this is one of the movements here, but you can see that he creates this picture. So it can start here, moves to A1, A2, A3, and then it shows this sort of cycle here where it goes around in a circle and moves along. And you can see if you check out his other pieces, Google an image of some George Crumb scores and show me what you can find. He has some interesting imagery. His piece called Black Angels has some interesting images. He has one piece where he writes the music and it's in a spiral. So you basically have to memorize his music because it doesn't look like it's traditionally written. So notice that the soprano here is leaning over into the grand piano. These percussionists are just kind of waiting while she sings into it. Now there's a microphone in there, so this is why you can hear her pretty well. You also hear those tongue clicks and pops from her as well, which make an interesting sort of avant-garde sound. So again, bizarre, sort of weird sounds that she's doing, not traditional. And she writes this music based off of comic strips that you would have seen on the Sunday paper. So you can see here, not music. She has these drawings and these sounds here, oink oink, zzz, meow, and these images that you would have seen here, bluch, boing, sort of sounds here that she does, that would have given you even the old Tarzan sound that you hear at the beginning. So we're going to watch her actually perform Strip City.
Yeah. Blum, blum. Boing! You stupid kite, come down out of that tree. Kite, or chomp, chomp, chomp. Glam, 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 glam. I'm Frida and I've got naturally curly hair. Do you like girls with naturally curly hair? Good grief. Pop! 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 Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. Dong, dong, dong. She's gonna take us to ride. The weather's supposed to be exciting. Sob, knock, knock, huh? Oh, smack! Grunt, snuff, glad, rum, come here. Rumble! Bam, scrank at the schwack. Oh, oh. Oink, oink, oink. Moo. Get it, bang, 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 bang. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Ugh, thud. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Stop. Dum 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 twang. Yay! It's a bird. No. It's a plane. No. It's Superman. Yes.